Mark Wedlarson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast, a very special episode. This episode is for the 250th birthday of the United States of America, and it's called We the People. And to start with this podcast episode, I want to read the preamble to the Constitution. It's We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Wise words. I mean, I can't imagine writing something like that even today. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to be talking about. Um, I, the United States is such a blessing. And in fact, the future's so bright, I'm going to put shades on. And anybody that dates me very much, the future's bright, so I got to wear my shades. And that's that, that right there tells you how blessed and how awesome the United States is. A 63-year-old guy wearing these shades, wearing a t-shirt, dead guy days, which I don't think they have in Northern Colorado, drinking homemade kombucha out of an A&W frosty mug, and just doing a podcast out here in South Central Nebraska. If that doesn't tell you what the United States stands about, or stands for, I should say, um, it does. Our founding fathers were very wise, and the Constitution is amazing that it's held up so well for these soon to be 250 years. And I think a lot of times we don't take what we have seriously. I know we're doing these podcasts around the world that that people can't. It's just like, people are people. I have done podcasts from just about every part of the world, from Africa to Pakistan to Australia to pretty much a lot of the states in the United States, all over. And people are people. And it was interesting because I did a podcast the other day on the people coming to the United States for the World Cup and how they couldn't believe what the United States actually stood for. And I take it for granted. I think if you've lived here your whole life, and I've only left really one time 3 years ago, right now, Cheryl and I went through Germany and went and stayed in Italy for a little bit. Um, I love it was awesome. I love Italy. Wasn't in Germany long enough, but it was cool. But I think when we get back, we don't realize the stuff we take for granted. Just doing this, sitting in my office here. Yeah, the central air is out right now and it's hot and humid, but I have a fan. I have electricity. I have all these modern conveniences that we complain about when one of them goes out. It wasn't that long ago, people in the United States didn't have air conditioning. And and I'm going to take summer over winter anytime. But that's personal preference. But the ability that I can do the podcast sitting in my out in the middle of everybody would say I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I have high speed internet, and really reliable internet. In some countries you don't really have a reliable internet in a city, but I have it where I can kick back, have my kombucha, talk to you, on this podcast, share my thoughts. But the United States is great. We have our issues, but I'm not going to go into negativity because the negatives show us what needs to be done. And God told me a long time ago that if you didn't have bad weather, you wouldn't know what good weather is like. So if we didn't have issues, and I'm going to name like surveillance cameras all over and data centers. And sometimes I'm not for sure that God doesn't put those into our reality to bring us together. I just think that He's working on getting us together, coming together. A common enemy, I don't know. But we always, over this 250 years, we've had issues. We've always had issues. We went through the Depression, all the world wars. I mean, there are so many issues that the United States, the Civil War, that came close to breaking the United States up, but it didn't. And it just brings us together. I think it actually draws us together to be a more, I don't know what the word is, a union that is more strong, and we'll go with that. But people are, it's like, oh, the country's going to fall apart. It's just so many things, and most of the time, and I'm you can probably say I'm to blame. I think a lot of it's social media, and I think social media is a good tool. I love it, but I think it's a bad anything to excess is bad. And I think that's one of our problems that we need to learn is to um, have it so we aren't doing it all the time. We need to get back to reality because social media can be it's a tool and it's kind of like AI coming up. I'm mixed there, but it's here and it's actually being used with this podcast. It is part of this, and I do have to watch it because it doesn't always get it right. But it's got a lot of potential what it can do, and just like that. So the negatives don't outweigh the positives. The positives of this podcast is I can reach all these people sitting in this chair in my office in central Nebraska doing nothing except for sitting here and talking to you. I reach everybody around the world. I mean, there's very few people that don't have the internet, which kind of surprises me as much as it does. I mean, I've even talked to people in India. Pretty much, I was telling Cheryl, and I think I told you on this podcast, I think I know people in almost half the countries of the world now. I wouldn't know that if it wasn't for this technology. And yeah, this technology has negatives, but everything does. It's yin and yang, negatives and positives. And it's kind of like the United States, 250 years. Um, it's not ending. We are such a strong country and we're coming together, with these data centers and people are coming together so they don't get them in their neighborhood or their area. And like I said, I think God's doing that to bring us together. And there's a lot of things, but you just think how much good is going on in this country. We're becoming aware of our food. We've kind of taken a backseat, letting these big corporations do all this and trusting pharmaceuticals also. But like I said, we have issues that we need to work on. But I think we're actually on the way to taking care of those issues. We are getting stuff taken out of our food. Granted, there's other parts of the world that are ahead of us, but we're there. We take action. I think that's another thing why I like the United States so much. People take action. They may hem and haw, but there are so many action takers, so many entrepreneurial people. The gentleman that I spoke to last night, that'll be on the podcast on Monday, Austin, living down in Dallas, Texas, is such an amazing kid. That kid is young man. He's a young man. Is going to do so much. He's already so much further than I was at 21. And, but we're all on our own journey. And I think that the podcast and other social media kind of puts us that there, you feel behind and nobody's behind. Everybody is on their journey. So, and I think that that is one thing that social media does push. But we have social media, we have electricity. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I have a fan blowing on me. I'm spoiled. I'm blessed. And that is all because I live in the United States. And yeah, there are other countries. I mean, Italy had a lot. I mean, when we went to southern Italy, they did have a lot. The people were awesome. It was definitely different than we have here, especially in Nebraska. But the people were awesome. Food was great. But I think we just need to. I'm going to take some of my kombucha. I need to lift weights with this thing too. And also, you have where you can start a podcast. You can write a book. You can have the book, up published very quickly, and you can make yourself a name very quickly. And yeah, it does take a while. I'm coming up on my 400th episode on the 10th of this month, and it does take a while. But I think we think that everything is just, as a snap of fingers, and it takes a long time to build a presence. But you have the opportunity. If it wasn't for this United States and what we have available, you probably would never, have a presence. You might not have food enough. You might be on the streets. And yeah, we do have people that are on the streets. We have a lot of issues. And I know the medical system from my wife, Cheryl, with her cancers and everything. And if you've listened to this podcast in the past, she had advanced colon cancer. So I'm all too well of the medical system in this country. I feel sorry for the doctors having to deal with it because I think the doctors are awesome. And the doctors, I mean, Cheryl's still here and she's coming up on 11 years still being here. And it was advanced colon cancer. So a blessing. She calls it lucky. I call it a blessing. But and it's just a thing to and I don't have health insurance. She's old enough, she's on Medicare. Um, but I don't have that yet. And I have never not had health insurance. But the entrepreneurs of the United States are coming to, we have doctors that are not dealing with insurance anymore. The cost is a fraction. I have one medication I'm on. It's actually less expensive by long ways than when I had insurance. So there's always somebody that's stepping up, thinking, what is next? What is next? What can I do to solve that problem? And that's why when you have problems, it brings the people out and brings us together. And that is one thing, talking about the people that were from Europe. And they said, well, it's like 50 individual states. And that says a lot because there's a lot of countries that are just right beside each other that can't get along. And yeah, the states don't always get along. And, so we're working close to breaking us apart, but it didn't. And we come together. We need like World War II. We all, and I was not there yet. I still was not born until the 60s. So, but I know what they did with the rationing. Yeah, there was only a certain amount of flour and sugar and everything, but people did it for the cause. And that people rally in the United States. When they see a cause, they rally. People are awesome. And that's one thing I'm also seeing, that the media around the world has depicted the United States as people that are friendly, rude, um, get out of my way, and people, especially in Nebraska and everywhere I've traveled in the United States, people have been awesome. You know, Maybe not as friendly as we are in the Great Plains, but I have been from Florida, Key West, Florida, Virginia Beach, Chicago, San Diego. I mean, I've been to a lot of different places, and I really can't tell that much difference in people. People are people, and I believe they all want the best. And that is because we are in the greatest country that has ever been on this planet. And it's because we are under God. This country is under God. And as long as we keep remembering that, um, we'll see another 250. And I think that was one thing Austin also said, that for a long time in his young life at 21, that he had been an atheist for a long time. And now he's going on the journey back to God. And God puts the thoughts in my head of what podcasts to do. And, I could be retired. I mean, I did handyman for 21 years. I could kick back and think, oh my gosh, I'm 63. I'm getting really old. No, that's why I'm wearing shades. I'm wearing a hat from Florida. Um, Dead guy days from Netherlands, Colorado. Don't be 63. And that is one thing that we have the freedom to be who we are in this country. And yeah, people that are, gay, whatever you want to call it, might have a more difficult time, but they still are able to, be in this society. And I love this country. I just We have our issues, but we will tackle them because of the entrepreneurs in this country, because of the things in place to take care of that. We may not have enough to do the homeless on the streets, but that's one thing that I'm going to tell you the whole podcast for Austin's podcast drops on Monday, but, where he'd maybe like to start a foundation to help people that are homeless because it's huge heart. He's a huge heart. And he doesn't like seeing that, and neither do I. But people's like, what can I do? What can I do to help those people? And I'm the same way. What can I do to help those people? Because everybody's like, well, go get a job and all this. And you know how hard it would be to go get a job if you don't have a car, a home, you're maybe not even food. It would be near impossible to get back from streets to having a job and being able to go to that job every day. Um, Even doing what entrepreneurial, self-employed, it would be tough because you wouldn't have probably a phone, you wouldn't have internet at home, you don't have a home. Makes it very tough. And we need to have more kindness, compassion and kindness for people in that situation. And I think we're getting there. I hate to see it, but I see and that's one thing. People always knock the younger generation. I think the younger generation coming up is going to be excellent. I think they're going to show us how it's done because they've been dealing with this technology their whole life. It's what they know. And the things that they're going to do, they're going to show us the way. And isn't that great? We live in a country where they can show us the way. And so happy birthday, America. 250 awesome years. And no, I mean, don't ever think that the United States is getting ready to be done, no matter what the media tells you. And I do wish we had, I think we do. I think this is where our media is now. The traditional media on TV, I think, is a way of the past. I think, especially my generation and older, that's where they get their news. I'm not like my generation. And I have people that are peers that do know internet, and but I think we don't take it by face value. We research it. We don't believe what they're saying, 100% that it's gospel. Um, it's awesome. And the world sees the United States, and especially after the World Cup, as the place to be. I see so many people saying, "I want to go back to the United States." They've got it. They've got it figured out, and we do. Um, I just am blessed that I was born in Denver, Colorado, in the '60s, and my parents moved me out here when I was 2. Actually, to this house, they didn't own it, but Cheryl, my wife, and I bought it. Oh my gosh, 20 some years ago now. And had an awesome guy that we got awesome couple that we bought this house from. Um, like I said, I'm blessed. And if you have a situation out there, or if you know there's a situation, go do something. We have the freedom. I just had lunch with my wife. I was able to go 20 miles, 20 miles round trip to go have my lunch with my wife in the park. Easy, not easy for me to say. And that's another thing. People would say, "Well, would you edit that?" And it's like, no, I have the freedom to do whatever I want on this. And and that is one mindset that needs to be changed a little bit. You can do everything you want to do on podcasting, whatever. You were put on here, this planet. God put you here for a reason, and He put you here to be an individual. You're unique unto yourself. You don't need to follow anybody. Set the path, set the way. And then in the United States, we have that freedom. So on this 250th birthday, don't forget that. This is the greatest country that has ever existed. And we're only getting better. And yeah, we have our issues. We always will have issues. As technology changes, we'll have things the parameters that will need to come in to help guide that, to new technology. But like I said, I think it brings us together, you know, like-minded, a common enemy. A common enemy has a great way of bringing people together. And I could see God doing that. God's ornery enough to do that. He works in mysterious ways. Don't forget that. This has not been really a long podcast, but I'm going to have some more of my kombucha. I don't know if you can hear the wren. I got the windows open. The wren's singing away here. Um, Awesome day. And I'm going to let you go. And have a great 250th celebration. And just remember, if you live in the United States, you are part of the best country that's ever existed under God. So on that, take care. Talk soon.